All right, greetings. This is this video will be for the Twilight of the Teutonics influences, the book influences. Um, let's see. Well, I'll tell you a story how kind of it came about. Um, I kind of explained this. I did an interview on occult rejects. I'll put maybe a link to that, or maybe put it down in my page. If you could watch that. But partly what happened is I was going to Queens College, and I kind of was like, I really liked their library there, by the way. And they had a really good World War II section, and I was kind of studying um, Holocaust studies, particularly with film. And sort of was sitting there and was kind of looking through all the titles and stuff, and then this kind of thing popped in my head. This idea of like German officers hiding his Jewish identity, and at the time I was sort of like, yeah, I don't think it would have happened. I was sort of like just too far fetched. And then what happened was it was a couple of years later. I went to Queens College, started in like 2001, and I graduated in 2006. And I got my major in media studies and a minor in film. So I was really fascinated with film, and I was thinking of ideas for film. I had an idea for like this film about Iraqi war veterans coming back from Iraq and having to deal with all the problems, and sort of this idea of a bank heist that sort of related to the war in kind of like a small, you know, symbolic way and stuff. But anyway, so this thought came, and I was sort of like, this is like, yeah, I don't know. And then kind of, looking online and different things, and then came across this book. It was been published by, here it is, Brian Mark Riggs, who was a actually he was in the Marines, and then in the IDF, kind of volunteered. But he did his doctorate on finding about these, basically, soldiers in the Third Reich that were of Jewish descent. And I was sort of like, wow, this is incredible. There's proof of this. And I was just like, and then I was sort of like, this is a viable story here. So mine was more of like fiction, obviously, but a lot of the things that relate into that book, some of the stories of some of the soldiers and what they went through are kind of, incorporated in my story. And then he wrote another book kind of with the particular individuals that served. Here's the book there. And of course, what I'll do is I'll leave all these books in a link below, and then you can check them out for yourself. So this is kind of the idea of kind of creating this character, Wolf Hauser. His stories, like, like a lot of many, they just kind of found out that they had this situation with their heritage, and it's sort of how they would maneuver, um, getting through it. And, surprisingly, a lot were on a very high level, and they kind of, Hitler was kind of sort of like, okay, we'll just Aryanize him. But he went through this whole process. I mean, he would, actually look at the pictures, look at the families, and make a decision if, they were good enough to be, of pure Aryan race. That was the sort of idea of the whole Munich laws that they created. And I mean, it really didn't matter. I mean, within a Jewish faith, it's usually the the woman's line that decides the Jewish heritage, I guess. And with the Third Reich, or the Nazi regime, they decided it was on both sides. So if your father was Jewish, then you were considered Jewish too. So anyway, so with the the whole thing with there was he kind of lays it out that it was like full Jew, half Jew, quarter Jew, and it was documented about maybe about 150,000. I probably think it was probably more than that, but so this was kind of an interesting take with this idea of him, my character, having this dilemma in the book, which creates these kind of situations where he gets into. So that was kind of like that's what kind of started it. And so then I wanted to kind of, I had all these other ideas I wanted to kind of incorporate in the story, and sort of the military thing that, I mean, Wolf was, starts off in the paratroopers. And this is all before he, finds out about it. He finds out after it, but this was the main military event that he was involved with, which was taking the fort of Aben el Mal, which was kind of like the pivotal, like, um, commando raid, probably one of the pivotal commando raids during World War II, where they actually used gliders to come down and land on this fort in Belgium, which was kind of like the thing that they had to like neutralize, because it was very, like, some said it was at the time like impenetrable, you know. But they managed to do it with just like a platoon of soldiers. I mean, the garrison underneath in the fort had, like, I think it was 1,200 guys, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, um, so this is what it kind of starts, and he's sort of kind of at this top level, wanted to move into the ranks in the military. So certain books, let's see. Well, the story actually begins like right before Normandy, and it's like a lot of flashbacks. So there's kind of these. This book has to deal with a lot of the battles that were going on in Normandy, particularly after the invasion at the beach. And then I used this book sort of. This was a good man with the maps. And then the unit that they get involved with is the Fallschirmjäger unit. That was they called them the Lions of Carrollton. It was the 6th Regiment that fought our paratroopers, the 101st and the 82nd, there in Carrington. And then this was an influence. This guy actually fought there. So this is kind of an influence on Wolf, this guy, Popel. And then, it's not a kind of a spoiler alert. Just basically what happens is Wolf ends up goes into the Waffen SS. So there's a couple books that relate to that. Blood Soaked and Soil by Gordon Gordon Williamson. There's that one there. And then this one was the division he gets assigned to in the beginning, sort of at the beginning of the book, Ghosts on Berlichingen. This was it's a good book. It's French and English too. So that was kind of like the sort of the military kind of thing that starts out. I mean, he goes in the Eastern Front. There's some interesting things going to Eastern Front, and then there's sort of the Eisengruppen thing he has to deal with. So, but I won't go too much into that at this point. The other influences kind of in the background are kind of let's see. Well, it's sort of like the there's the occult aspects, which are sort of lingering in the background because he meets Himmler, and Himmler's very fascinated with that, and it kind of comes up more in kind of conversational things than it's actually like going into the depths of it, but it's definitely there. And so he's sort of like a soldier kind of getting, sort of like, what is this? And, kind of, it's sort of like this whole new thing to him, I guess. But anyway, couple books here. Paul Rowland's Nazi and the Occult. It's not a bad book there for that information. This one was really interesting. Hitler's Monsters. Supernatural History of the Third Reich by Eric Kurland. So I recommend this book. This really goes into depth in a lot of this, the whole, supernatural aspects that were kind of in that group, so to speak. And then, also, he pays a visit to this castle in the story. So, the Velasberg Castle. So that's part of it as well. And then, let's just say he sees something he's not supposed to see, and it kind of deals with sort of the, let's just say, the financial things, the sort of cabal thing going on behind the scenes. Who was really financing the Third Reich? What was going on in that respect? Sort of lingering in the background. So the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, which a lot of people can consider the Nazi bank. So it was like a lot of Nazis were on the board of directors. And this thing still exists, still doing all kinds of mischief. And Anthony Sutherland's book, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler. Very interesting book. Trading with the Enemy by Charles Higham, the Nazi plot, the money that was kind of like going on behind the scenes, this kind of thing. And then James Poole, he wrote it with his sister back in the late 70s. And then there was a sequel, which I don't put in the bibliography, but this was kind of the sequel to the book. So that's always a fascinating subject that goes on with what happened at that time. And then, let's see. I think some of the personalities that show up in the story, I'll show you here. This great guy, being facetious anyway, Heinrich, who seems to be might have had his own secrets, you know, related to what was going on with Wolf. And Joachim Piper, he makes an appearance in the book. And then the one who was in charge of the Ibn Amal raid, Witzig, Rudolf Witzig. This is a really good biography. I recommend this. Otto Scorsini, he makes an appearance. And we don't have a picture of him at Walton Schellenberg. He was, he became basically in charge of what we call the security, like the espionage aspect of the SS, at the closing of the war. This is a good book too, though he probably wasn't telling everything. There's a lot of eye-opening kind of things going on, but he was kind of an interesting character. He was sort of kind of a more reasonable, more flexible thinking type of, individual. Even though he was in the mechanism, he sort of was realizing things were, going to go well for the Reich and stuff like that. So I think that's about it. There's other books that I haven't mentioned that will probably be in the thing, and there was also what is it again here? So many books and trying to find things here. My own book here. Let's see. Wilhelm Wolff, which is spelled Wullff, the Zodiac and the Swastika. I kind of go into their whole fascination with the astrology. I mean, the Nazis were pretty obsessed with the astrology, particularly Himmler at the end of the war, when he's going to try to make whatever moves he was going to make. With Herr Wolff, he was basically, they were, consulting him on the hour and what to do. He was a very interesting individual. I mean, he kind of met Bormann at one point, which is kind of interesting encounter there. But he was extremely accurate with his predictions, and he claims he was really the one that kind of narrowed down basically Mussolini lost power and he had to go into hiding. Actually, what happened is they captured him and they were holding him in different places, and supposedly Herr Wolff was able, through the astrology, to actually kind of like figure out where he was, which is kind of fascinating. Maybe he was using kind of remote viewing too. But anyway, fascinating book. I'll leave a link. You can buy it, but there is a link where you can just read it for free. So I'll leave that in the links too. So anyway, I hope it piques your interest. There's one more book. This one, where the hell is it? Oh, here it is. This goes into some of the stuff with Schellenberg and Herr Wolff. It's basically about Felix Kirsten, who is basically Himmler's masseuse, kind of doctor. And Himmler had these gastrointestinal, like really severe, like attacks. Um, it's due probably to kind of what he was suppressing and stuff and doing. Um, so I guess Kirsten was the only one that could relieve him of these incredible like super cramps that he would get. And so he became indispensable, and Kirsten started influencing him, trying to get him, steering him away from these, you know, this sort of diabolical, mentality he was kind of acquiring. And at the end, he was able to free a lot of the concentration camp um, victims, and then sort of help set up the meeting with, I think it was the American Jewish Council or something like that, a member of them. Um, Kind of, it's sort of this backstory where, you had Schellenberg, Herr Wolf, and Kirsten trying to figure out how to, make these things to happen at the end of the war. But anyway, thought hopefully this sparks your interest. And I think the next video will probably be kind of with the films that kind of influenced the story. Okay, take care. Hope everybody has a great day.